This is the continuing story of Peyton Place. Starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Mia Farrow as Allison Mackenzie, Ryan O'Neill as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Conley as Norman Harrington.
The People versus Rodney Harrington. Third day. As Rita Jacks undergoes cross-examination, she wishes she could stop this trial, and all it will reveal.
So then what you have told us, Miss Jacks, is that Norman Harrington was angry with Joe Chernak because of the attention that he had been paying you. That his anger resulted in a fight with Chernak in which Norman was badly beaten, and that early on the morning of the next day, the day that was to be Joe Chernak's last day on Earth, Norman Harrington's brother, the accused, came to you very much concerned and questioned you in detail about the beating that his brother had sustained at the hands of an older boy?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Miss Jacks. Your witness?
Proceed, Mr. Court.
Miss Jacks, you have testified that you had a conversation with the accused on the morning of the day Joe Chernak died. After that conversation, did you at any time see Chernak?
Yes, sir.
Would you tell us in your own words where and when that took place?
He came over to my house that afternoon about 5 o'clock.
What did he want?
He wanted to see me. Well, I wouldn't let him, and he pushed his way in my back door. He wanted me to go with him again, and I told him I wouldn't.
What happened then?
Well, he kissed me, and I wouldn't kiss him back, and he got mad.
He got mad?
Very mad.
What did he do then?
Well, he shoved me against the wall.
Did he hurt you?
Yes, he shoved me hard.
Had he ever hurt you before?
Yes, lots of times. Whenever he'd get mad at something else, he'd take it out on me.
Can you give me an example?
Well, once at the shoreline, he lost his dime in a pinball machine. He started hitting the machine and swearing at it. It looked kind of funny. I mean, it was just a dime and everything. I started to laugh. He ran over and grabbed my arm and started to squeeze it really hard. Left a big bruise on it for a couple of weeks.
There were other times, too?
Yes, sir.
You said it was about 5 o'clock when Joe Chernak forced his way into your home and used force on you. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Following this act of violence, what did Joe do?
Well, he left.
Had he cooled off by the time he left?
No, because he left right after he shoved me.
Still in a violent temper.
Yes, sir.
And that was less than 2 hours before he met Rodney on the wharf.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Miss Jacks.
Is that all?
That's all.
Not quite, Miss Jacks.
Do you wish to redirect, Mr. Fowler?
Yes, Your Honor, I have certain questions I'd like to ask the witness.
Proceed.
Miss Jacks, you just testified that you last saw Joe Chernak alive 2 hours before his death.
Yes, sir.
And how is it that 1 hour after his death, you told Sergeant Goddard of the Peyton Place Police Department that you hadn't seen Joe for, quote, a couple of weeks?
I don't know. I guess I was scared.
Scared of what, Joe? Joe was dead.
Well,
And when I questioned you 2 weeks later, you repeated this story to me, that you hadn't seen Joe Chernak for a couple of weeks prior to his death.
Yes, sir.
Were you still scared then?
I guess so.
This isn't a guessing game, Miss Jacks. This is a court of law. Please try to recall your emotions more accurately. And were you still scared when I questioned you?
Yes, sir.
Of what?
Of you.
Would you explain that, please?
Well, I mean, I just didn't want to get involved.
Or when did you decide to get involved?
A couple of weeks ago.
A couple of weeks ago, on the 22nd, to be exact, you came to my office and revised your story.
Yes, sir.
Who instructed you to come to me with a new story?
Stephen Cord.
The counsel for the defense.
Yes, sir. But he didn't tell me what to say. I mean, I didn't just make it up. That's what happened. Joe did come to my house, and he did hurt me.
Did anyone see Joe Chernak come to your house on July 16th?
No, sir.
Before you told Mr. Cord of his visit, did you mention the matter to anyone else?
Yes, sir. My mother and Norman Harrington.
Your mother and the brother of the accused.
Yes, sir.
Now, is there anyone who can prove that your account of Joe's visit is true?
No.
When you talked with Sergeant Goddard, did you tell the truth or did you lie?
I lied.
And when I questioned you the first time, did you tell the truth or did you lie?
I lied.
No further questions.
Mr. Cord.
Your Honor, before I begin to re-cross-examine the witness, may I request that the courtroom be cleared of all minors?
Would you approach the bench, Mr. Cord?
Stephen, nobody's taking me out of here. I'm not leaving.
What kind of evidence do you intend to bring out that you make a request of this nature, Mr. Cord?
I ask that the court be cleared because of the nature of the testimony involving the relationship between Miss Jacks and the deceased. The prosecution has touched on this, but without going into this relationship in detail, well, the court may never get the true picture of why the violence erupted, or who was really responsible.
Do you have any objections, Mr. Fowler?
Not as long as the testimony is relevant, Your Honor.
Very well, I'll have the court cleared.
May I ask that the defendant's brother, Norman Harrington, be exempt? He will be called as a witness and is an integral part of the case.
If you think it's advisable, but caution him against any further outbursts.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bailiff, will you have the courtroom cleared of any persons under 21 years of age?
You can stay, Norman.
Stephen.
If you care at all about your brother, get hold of yourself.
Stephen. Don't do it.
No choice.
Thought you better hear what she's going to say about Joey.
All right, Papa, I'm here now.
No telling what's going to come out of that crooked little mouth of hers.
This court will come to order. Counsel for the defense will continue the cross-examination. Proceed, Mr. Cord.
Miss Jacks, you testified you met Joe Chernak and his friends when you were 16. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell us, if you will, exactly what you had to do to become a member of Joe Chernak's gang of friends.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel for defense was given sanction to investigate the relationship between the witness and the deceased, not to do a sociological study of teenage gangs.
I submit, Your Honor, that the jury cannot make a fair and honest and unprejudiced decision unless they have some insight into the motivations of the group of teenagers that Joe Chernak ruled.
And I submit, Your Honor, the counsel for the defense is using this witness to create a diversion, a sensational diversion.
The court finds that a curious accusation coming from the counsel for the people, inasmuch as Miss Jacks is the people's witness. Counsel for the defense would seem to have a valid point. Objection overruled. Proceed, Mr. Cord.
Thank you, Your Honor. Where did you first meet Joe Chernak?
In the old warehouse by the railroad station.
Who else was there?
Just some of Joe's friends. About 10 or 12 of them.
Who brought you there?
Oh, I don't remember. Just some boy.
Wasn't that boy's name Rick?
Yes. I just met him. I knew he was in with a lot of kids. He went to parties and stuff.
You mean you weren't in?
Well, I didn't go out much. I didn't have many dates.
Why was that?
I wasn't pretty enough, I guess. And my clothes didn't help much. I couldn't ask any kids home. We live in the back of my mother's bar.
So out of loneliness, to get in with some other kids, you accepted a date with this boy, Rick.
Yes.
When you started out that night with Rick, where did you think he was taking you? Well, you knew about the parties at the warehouse, didn't you?
No? Well, I mean, I knew there were parties there.
When you arrived at the warehouse with Rick, was Joe Chernak there?
Yes.
What happened after you arrived at the warehouse?
Rick introduced me to Joe.
I beg your pardon?
I said, Rick introduced me to Joe.
I believe that's the polite way of saying he turned you over to Joe? Isn't that true?
Yes. Yes, that's true.
What happened then?
I tried to run away.
You tried to run away?
Yes, but they caught me.
What did they make you do, Rita? And then you belong to Joe Chernak. Isn't that right? Isn't that right?
Yes, yes, that's right. That I belong to him.
All right. You were Joe's girl. How long did you go with him?
I don't remember, quite a while.
3 or 4 months?
7 or 8 months.
How do you think going with Joe affected your life?
Objection, Your Honor. We're not concerned with the opinions of the witness. Objection sustained.
Isn't it a fact that shortly after you became Joe's girl, you quit school?
Yes.
Was it as a result of Joe Chernak's influence?
Joe told me that my mother neglected me. That she didn't care about me, that she wished I was out of her hair. I was lonesome and mixed up. It was my fault. Joe convinced me that quitting school was the smartest, greatest thing I could do. Practically everyone in the gang had quit school.
And you went with Joe until he stole a car and was sent to the honor farm.
Yes.
Did he tell you why he stole the car?
He said he wasn't going to let his sister Stella run out on him. He was going to California to find her.
She's lying.
Your Honor, is all this relevant?
Well, I believe it is relevant, Your Honor. And I hope the court will permit me to continue in order to make my point.
Proceed.
Rita, which one of his friends did Joe Chernak introduce you to when he left for the honor farm?
The court will not permit that kind of questioning of a witness, Mr. Cord. Strike that question. You need not answer, Miss Jacks.
Yes, I do. Joe introduced me to a boy named Kitch. And then I was his chick.
And after you went with Kitch for a few months, you met Norman Harrington and started dating him. Isn't that right?
Yes.
Well, how did Kitch and the rest of Joe's friends take that?
They They told me I was going to get in trouble. Kids told me that Joe knew all about it and he couldn't wait to meet my new boyfriend.
What did Joe do when he was released from the honor farm?
They told me I was his girl and I better get rid of Norman.
But you didn't stop seeing Norman. You defied Joe Chernock, didn't you?
Yes, I told him I was changed and I was finished with him. I tried to make him understand, but...
What did he do about that?
Well, one night when I was going home, Joe and one of his friends tried to pull me in their car.
Are you testifying that the deceased and another boy tried to abduct you?
They tried to take me away with them.
And did you notify the police?
No.
Did anyone else witness this incident?
Yes, Elliot Carson. He saw it all happen.
Wasn't there anyone you could appeal to make Joe leave you alone? His parents?
No, Joe hated his father.
That's a lie.
Order in the court.
Papa, be quiet.
But you belonged to Joe. And he had to prove to his gang of friends that no one was going to take his girl away, isn't that right? Especially a Harrington. Objection.
Sustained.
Did he make any other subsequent attempts to harm you?
Yes.
What did he do?
Well, it was the night of the high school graduation dance. And I ran into Joe when I was coming home from the dressmakers. He pulled me into the warehouse. He told me he'd never let me get away from him. I yelled, but there wasn't anybody to hear me. He forced me to kiss him, but I wouldn't kiss him back, and he grabbed me.
I think we understand what happened, Rita. You rejected him, didn't you?
Yes.
And he became vicious and violent and...
They're lying about my boy. They're lying.
Remove that man from the courtroom.
My boy's in his grave, and they're lying.
You utter one more word in this courtroom, I shall find you in contempt of court. This court will come to order.
And again, in the warehouse, you told Joe you were finished. Really finished?
Yes.
And still he didn't believe you?
No.
Perhaps, Rita, you weren't very convincing. Perhaps even though you said no to him, you led him to believe you'd change your mind.
That's not true.
Isn't it true that you were delighted with the prospect of having a boy like Joe and a gentleman like Norman Harrington both chasing after you, wanting you?
No.
Then why did Joe keep coming after you? Why? Isn't it true that you didn't report to the police when he tried to pull you in his car? And you didn't try to stop him from bothering you or pulling you into a doorway or a warehouse because part of you didn't want him to stop? Because if you had wanted him to stop, he would have gotten the message, Rita.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. For a long time that was true. For a long time I couldn't help it. But when it was over, finally I didn't feel anything for him. He knew it. He believed it then.
And when was that?
When he came to see me the day he died.
And he was so violently angry and insanely jealous he could have killed.
Objection.
Objection sustained. The jury will disregard that last remark. The court will not allow you to continue tormenting this witness, Mr. Cord.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Before the court is adjourned for the day, I must admonish the jury once again not to discuss this trial or any subject connected with it, nor to form or express any opinions until the complete case has been submitted to you. You're excused, Miss Jacks.
Court is adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow morning.
alone.
Remember me? The creep that lives above the drugstore that's always stomping around on your head?
Norman, leave her alone.
You're like some kind of a shark tearing at her, letting her bleed all over the place. And then when she's too weak to fight, you move in for the kill.
All right, that's enough, Norman. You got it off your chest?
No, sir, not by a long shot.
Norman, stop it.
And you let him do it to her.
Nobody likes it any better than you do. But what could we do?
You should have seen her face. Trying to be invisible as she walked down the corridor. Everybody's staring at her. Think of it.
All right. Now, this is not a course in how to win friends and influence people. This is a murder trial. Now, you hate my method, you hate me. But I was hired to get Rod acquitted, and that's what I intend to do. In spite of you.
Sharks. All of you.
Norman! For once, think of your brother.
Yeah. Sure.
Leave him alone, Norman.
I can't.
I'm sorry about this, Stephen. You did what you had to do. I understand that.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington.
How about a drink?
I've got work to do.
Goodbye, Stephen.
Congratulations.
Thanks, John.
You really did a job on Rita Jacks.
Yeah, I'd say so, too.
Well, I'll see you next round.
Preview from the continuing story of Peyton Place.
Dr. Rossi said it would be some time before she can even face the fact that Mr. Mackenzie doesn't even exist.
I'll send him a copy of Rita's testimony, and we'll pour over it tomorrow.
You've made your point. You don't like what you did to Rita.
No, I don't.
What would your fine doctor think of you then? You want to keep him, don't you, Stella? Don't you?